A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Today marks the 5th Majlis at IEC Husaini, Chicago for our Ashra English lecture series read by Moulana Syed Safi Haider Abidi. I would like to now introduce Brother Mohsin Rizvi, son of Brother Alamdar Rizvi, to recite the salam. Please recite aloud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa rajil farajam.
वो अगर होता तो ऐसा नहीं होता गाज़ी तेरी शहज़ादी यूं दर देना फिर आई जाती तू अगर होता तो ऐसा नहीं होता गाज़ी कभी असरब तो कभी सूए नजफ देखते थे कभी तेरे कटशानों की तरफ देखते थे शहन अकबर के कलेजे से निकाली पर्ची तू अगर होता तो ऐसा नहीं होता गाज़ी हो गई सानिय ज़हरा भी ज़ईफ़ा आपास सांस लेती हूँ मगर मैं नहीं जिंदा आबाद हाय तेरे टुकड़ों की कसम तेरी बहन टूट गई तू अगर होता तो ऐसा नहीं होता गाज़ी प्यास में भी तुझे आवाज दिए जाते थे ज़ेर खंजर भी तेरा नाम लिए जाते थे गर्दन शाह पे जब शिमरा चला था तू अगर होता तो ऐसा नहीं होता गाज़ी मेरे हाथों को भी रस्सी से गया था बांधा मैं भी हाथों का न ले पाई सहारा भैया हाय जैसे तू जी से गिरा वैसे मैं ना वैसे
Bawazib baland salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajam. As I stated earlier, today marks the 5th Majalis in our Ashra English lecture series read by Moulana Syed, Safi, Haider, Abidi. Before we start with the speech, I'd like to recite a few verses of poetry. This poem is titled Month of Grief. How many years have we wept? In the eye your name is kept. Hussein we'll never forget. When the month of grief descends, the love of your name ascends, and with its tears the eye sends. Hearts were not meant to be torn, O reason that tears are born, but for you hearts break and mourn. You died but live in the heart. Your story tears hearts apart. Your head from body they part. You tied heaven to the earth, and you gave heaven its worth. Muhammad wept with your birth. O whose name, heaven's prince, the earth misses your presence. Zainab laments your absence. You rose against the tyrant, of him there's not a remnant. Millions for you lament. Sheikhs writing of you this pen. Mourning you one night shakes men, and the night's mourning are 10. Your call for help the soul hears. He can fill seas with our tears, and drown all those swords and spears. O whose swords on you would pray, hearts ask us as from grief they sway. Help these hearts on Judgment Day. Bawazib baland salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajam. Today's speech concludes the topic on the origins of the doctrines of Shi'ism. Please recite a loud salawat for Moulana Syed Safi Haider Abdi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajam.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد صلى على محمد وآل محمد وصل اللهم على آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين. قال الله الحكيم في القرآن الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإن من شيعته لإبراهيم. Tonight concludes the 5-point lecture series for the first half of this Ashra, where we had been talking about the historical development of the Shia Aqaid through time. In the first lecture, I had started talking about the necessity for understanding a sacred history and what that means in terms of the wider Judeo-Christian tradition of sacred history of the Jews and the Christians, and then the sacred history of the Muslims, and how the Aqaid developed within the framework of sacred history. Also in the first lecture, I had started the discussion about the topic of Tawheed as the first Aqaid. In the second day, the discussion continued onto the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I talked about how the imamat of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam, in specific and in general the imamat of the A'immah of Ahlul Bayt, is physical. It is the absolute testimony to the justice of God. On the third night, I talked more about the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how they relate to the aqaid. The fourth night was a discussion on the concept of nubuwwah. Tonight, I want to conclude this lecture series with a discussion on the concept of imamat and qiyamah. So the first question that comes to the minds of people when they ask, what is the prophetic view or the Islamic view of the leadership that emerged after Muhammad? And Muslims have a different view of this. The one says that the Prophet Muhammad did not leave any successor, he left it to the Muslim world to decide, which is the view of our brethren of the Sunnah. They say Prophet Muhammad left no successor, and according to them there is a hadith that says that my nation will not agree on error, meaning they will be right or be somewhere in the middle, but they will not be wrong. They will never be wrong if they reach a consensus. And they believe, therefore, the Prophet Muhammad had left the leadership to the majority of the Muslims. Now the question comes, there is another view that says that the successorship was determined by Allah and declared by Prophet Muhammad to be manifested in the Zat of 12 Imams, the starting of which is Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, and the final is Muhammad al-Mahdi. Now the people ask, how come there is such a big difference as to the successorship of Muhammad after Prophet Muhammad leaves this world amongst the Muslims? People ask why. And in order for us to understand why there is such a difference or difference of views, why there are two views, is that we need to really understand what the concept of imamat, khilafat, and wasiyat mean within the development of Islamic history, but also within the theoretical framework of the development of the aqaid. Imam literally means leader. In this sense, the Imam is the successor to Prophet Muhammad. Nabuwat and Risalat stop with Khatam al-Nabiyyin. We don't believe in the tradition that says, in our tradition that says that if that Jibreel made a mistake and then Nabuwat went to Imam Ali and went to Prophet Muhammad by accident. No. Nabuwat absolutely stops at Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Final, no doubt about it. He is the culmination of 124,000 prophets that came before him. All of them are found in the wujud of Muhammad. His Quran, his Sharia is the final Sharia. His book is the highest ranking of all books. His miracle is the highest ranking of all miracles. Now, when the Prophet, according to the Shia, they say that the Imam shares in the characteristics of the Prophet, except he is not Rasul or Nabi, or there is no Risala after Prophet Muhammad, and he does not share in the prophethood of Muhammad. No. But that means if Prophet Muhammad is ma'asum, the Imam is ma'asum. If Prophet Muhammad is sadiq, the Imam is sadiq. If Prophet Muhammad is ameen, the Imam is ameen. If Prophet Muhammad is free from error, then Imam is free from error. Meaning that this idea is the ultimate authority of the Muslim world after Prophet Muhammad. And this Imam has absolute command over the whole Muslim world. Now, of course, we should note, and I will note, there is the concept of Imam Salatul Jama'ah or Imam al-Jum'ah. Imam literally just means leader. Therefore, Imam of Salatul Jama'ah is also Imam. Imam of Salatul Jama'ah is also Imam. They don't share, obviously, in the ismat or the infallibility or the extra leadership capabilities and qualities of the Ma'asum Imam from Ahlul Bayt, but they're also known as Imam. In that specific context, because they're leading the prayer. They're not Ma'asum. They make mistakes, they can sin and everything. But the Imams from Ahlul Bayt are Ma'asum. Just in the same way as Prophet Muhammad was Ma'asum. The Imams from Ahlul Bayt are infallible. In the same way Prophet Muhammad is infallible. They are Sadiq, Ameen, trustworthy, truthful, dependable, loyal followers and servants of Allah, in the same way as Prophet Muhammad was. Khilafah means successorship. Khilafah itself means successorship, and the Khalifa means successor. In the Shia sense of the word, these words, imamat and khilafat, can be used interchangeably. But there is a view that says that the khilafah amongst our brethren of Al-Sunnah went to the first Khalifa, meaning Abu Bakr and Umar and then Uthman. And then from Uthman to Imam Ali, and then from Imam Ali to Muawiyah, Yazid, and so forth. Now, Khilafah means successorship. Khalifa means successor. Those who are the Khalifa of Muhammad, how is it possible that when the Nabuwwat of Muhammad was not left to the whims of the ordinary human being, the Khilafat to succeed Muhammad would be left to the whim of human beings? If the Quraysh, who were the majority at that time, had the ability to choose the prophethood, they would have chosen Abu Sufyan, Abu Jahl, Abu Lahab, or somebody of those likes. But no. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose a prophet. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose a prophet. And he also, from the perspective of the school of Ahlul Bayt, chose the Khulafa to succeed Prophet Muhammad. There are different traditions as to what the successorship meant. But there is a consensus amongst the Muslimin that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said in multiple times, very much out in the open, sometimes the crowd was so big or so noisy, sometimes deliberately noisy because they did not want to hear the message of Prophet Muhammad. He would say that the emirs, that the khulafa, that the imam after me are 12. And the school of Ahlul Bayt promotes the idea of 12. The Ja'afari madhab promotes the idea of 12 imams. Now, what about wasiyyah? Wasiyyah basically is will, or the execution of the will. And the wasi is the executor of the will. The wasi is the executor of the will. In this sense, they are the same as the Imam of Ahlul Bayt, the Khalifa of Ahlul Bayt, because they are the executor of the will of Rasulullah in this world, which is the will of God. Which is the will of God, really. Now, people might ask, what is the difference between Imamat, Khilafat, and Wasiyyah? In this sense, they can be used in the same way. But if the Prophet Muhammad left his successor, that means there is no doubt about it, successorship should go only to that person and those who he appoints after him. There's no doubt about that. What people used to claim, however, about the prophethood of Prophet Muhammad was that it was just, na'udhu billah, the Quraysh used to say this, and Yazid said this as well. It was a sham. Banu Hashim did this all for power. When the conquest of Mecca happened, Abu Sufyan was found with Abbas, the uncle of Prophet Muhammad, Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib. And Hazrat Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib, he started showing Abu Sufyan, he wanted to see if the Muslims could treat Abu Sufyan with respect, to see if he could convert to Islam. And he was showing Abu Sufyan the various forces of Prophet Muhammad. And he would point out, saying that this notable person from this tribe is in the army of Muhammad, this notable person from this tribe is from the army of Muhammad. At that time, Prophet Muhammad passed by with some of his companions, and Abu Sufyan looked at Abbas, and he says, Abbas, your nephew has acquired quite a kingdom. To which Abbas said, Badbakht, this is not kingship, this is prophethood. Ye mulukiyat nahi hai, ye nabuwat hai. This is not kingship, this is not lordship, this is prophethood. This is not serfdom, this is freedom of prophethood. This is prophethood that we're talking about. However, when we talk about the views of the majority of the Muslims, when Uthman ibn al-Affan became Khalifa, Abu Sufyan is still alive. Uthman ibn al-Affan is from the Banu Umayyah. He basically says, "O Banu Umayyah, do with this Khilafah, play it as a game, passing it from one to the other. It was all a sham that Muhammad did. The only thing that is real is this kingdom, and we don't know anything about heaven or hell." Then he went to the mountain of Uhud. He went to the grave of Hamza, Sayyid al-Shuhada, and he kicked the grave, saying basically, "Oh Hamza, look, the kingship that you fought against came back to the Banu Umayyah." This view was expressed in Yazid as well, who said that Banu Hashim were playing a game, as I mentioned before. There was no revelation, there was no wahi, there was no message from God. It was all an attempt to gain power. Those who say this misunderstand the concept of mulukiyat versus hidayat. Those who say this misunderstand the concept of hukumat versus hidayat. Mulukiyat is kingship, lordship. Hidayat is guidance. Kingship, lordship, and then hidayat is guidance. Kingship, lordship, and then hidayat is guidance. When we talk about mulukiyat, this mulukiyat is absolutely nothing for the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If the prophets of God had wanted mulukiyat or hukumat, they could have openly espoused it at different times. Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam, Risala Salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam is about to be thrown into the pit of fire, into the wilderness of fire that Namrud has burned just to fear, make Ibrahim fear and burn him to death. That fire turned into a field of flowers for him. That was the best time where if Nabi Ibrahim had wanted mulukiyat or hukumat, he could have easily overthrown the Namrud. When Nabi Musa is in the darbar of Fir'aun, or was in the palace of Fir'aun, and the magicians made their rod and sticks turn into small snakes, and Nabi Musa was ordered by Allah to throw his staff down, that turned into a bigger snake that ate all the smaller snakes. All the priests and the magicians of Fir'aun's court did sajda to Nabi Ibrahim, and they said, "We testify to the God of Nabi Musa and Nabi Harun, and we become followers." That was the best time. That was the best time for Nabi Musa to overthrow the kingdom. But he goes out and he flees, or he leaves Egypt to Sinai, and then from Sinai to Palestine, Palestine. When is it that the Muslims will learn that mulukiyat is not hidayat, that hukumat is not hidayat? There has always been a trend amongst the majority of Muslims to talk about mulukiyat as guidance, whether it is modern forms of government or lordship and kingship. They always seem to side with those in authority amongst the authority figures. They always seem to do that. When will the Muslims learn? Islam has its own criterion for leadership. Islam has its own understanding of leadership. Islam has its own understanding of wilayat and walayat, the political and the moral authority that is vested in the prophets and the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning the prophets and the anbiya and the A'immah Ahlul Bayt and the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Obviously. But now I should mention this. Amongst even the Shia, they say that Imam Ali was the first Imam. But then the Khilafat was stolen from Imam Ali and usurped by the first Khalifa. There's nothing that can be taken from Imam Ali. And in that sense, I mean, physically he doesn't have that much in his house. But how can you treat or how can you steal something that is an intrinsic part of one's character? Khilafat and Imamat could not have been stolen because the Khalifa was chosen by God. And therefore, he was the representative of God. How can somebody steal a God-given leadership? It's not possible. Those who were the followers of Imam Ali still exerted his authority over them. Whether it was allowing them to take different views, or for when he was elected the Khalifa by the majority of the Muslims, his openly espousing political objectives. Yes. But this hidayah was the purpose of Amir al-Mu'mineen Salaam alayhi. If the political authority meant imamat and khilafat, or if imamat and khilafat meant political authority, then after Imam Ali there is no imam after Imam Hassan who becomes khalifa. Imam Rida becomes the vicegerent, yes, but he doesn't become khalifa. How is it that we can say, therefore, that the political authority was with the Khalifa and not the Imam? No. They can't steal this from the Imam. That's the point. It's not something to be, I have a book and you steal this book from me. Or you have keys or a car and I steal the car or I usurp your house. No. No, that's not how it works. Remember, this imamat is what Fatima Zahra alayha salatu alayha gave her life for. This imamat was what every imam gave their life for. The preservation of the nizam of guardianship after the Prophet. The preservation of the concept of guardianship after the Prophet. When we talk about Fatima Zahra salamullahi alayha, I'm not in the musibah phase yet, but I want to mention the musibah with the Fatima Zahra because it directly relates to this topic that I'm talking about right now. Now, when we talk about the concept of imamat, the muhafiz of imamat, the first muhafiz of imamat was Fatima Zahra. And another one was her daughter Zainab al-Kubra. When Fatima Zahra was struck between the wall and the door, and her rib cage was punctured, Imam Ali's neck was tied in a noose and he was being dragged throughout the streets of Medina. Fatima Zahra found out that this was happening to the Imam. Broken rib cage, shaheed fetus. She goes up and she stands, and according to some, at one time she takes a leaning to a wall because her rib cage is broken, and she says to them, Fizza, tell them, if they don't let Abu Hassan go, I will make bad dua. And when Imam Ali finds out, he says to his companions, tell Fatima that if she makes bad dua, her bad dua will be accepted, but the religion of her father will not remain. One lady, Zainab salamullahi alayha, and the caravan of prisoners may God's peace and blessings be upon the prisoners, was reaching Sham or Damascus, the Ahl al-Bayt, and specifically Lady Zainab, made one request. She said, tell them that Kufa was a city of Muslims, but in Sham there are non-Muslims here. Give us our veils now. And when the response came no, Lady Zainab gathered everybody. And she said, I will make the bad dua, you say Ameen. She raises her hands for bad dua. She looks at the head of her brother, Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein's head is crying. She says, brother, why are you crying? Why are you crying? He says, Zainab, if you make this bad dua, your bad dua will be accepted, but the religion of Muhammad will no longer remain. The mother has to say that she was making the bad dua for Imam Ali, but now through the hukam of Imam Ali, she's bringing her hands down. Lady Zainab wants to make the bad dua similarly, but because of the hukam of Abu Abdullah, she puts her hands down. She understands. 12 Imams. Imam Ali, Imam Hassan, Hassanain, Imam Hussein, Imam Zain al-Abidin, Muhammad Baqir, Ja'far Sadiq, all the way to Imam Mahdi. All the way to Imam Mahdi. Imam Mahdi is that Imam where all the aspirations of human justice are manifested in the nature of the Imam. People ask, what is the proof of the Mahdi? The proof of the Mahdi is that there is an innate desire for justice amongst all of creation. All of creation wants perfection. That is the proof of Imam Mahdi. Imam Mahdi is the perfection. According to some, I forget how many, I believe it's like 25 or 27 doors, that they say in the hadith that there are 25 or 27 doors when Imam Mahdi comes. I'm not saying right now in 2020. When the Imam comes, only 2 or 3 doors will be open, and he will open the remaining doors. I asked a friend of mine, what does this mean? Does that mean Imam Mahdi is going to be writing books on physics and biology and chemistry and mathematics and treatise on logic and everything? He says no. He will elevate the aql of humanity to the extent that everybody will accept him. Everybody will accept Imam Mahdi, period. Those who oppose him will be the ruling class, but the majority of the people will accept Imam Mahdi. There are different signs as to, and I want to conclude with the short discussion on Qiyamah, as to the signs of the reappearance of the Imam Mahdi. There are 2-3 couple of signs that are absolute necessary and must happen, and the remaining signs are conditional. They might happen, they might not happen, doesn't matter. Does not have direct say or most importance as to when the Imam will come back. The 1, 2, 3, 4 signs are the rising of the Khurasani, the Yamani, and the Sufyani, of which the Khurasani and the Yamani are good and the Sufyani is evil. And the Shahadat of Muhammad Nafsu Zakiyah, 2 weeks before the Zuhur of Imam Mahdi to the public. The Shahadat will happen 2 weeks before Ashura, and on Friday, the 10th of Muharram, Imam Mahdi makes his qiyam. The hadith are so specific, they say that even if there were 1 day left before the Yawm al-Qiyamah, and Imam Mahdi had not made his appearance, that Allah will extend the day so much, make it so long, that the Zuhur of Imam Mahdi will happen, and that the final testimony of Allah will be delivered. Meaning that there's a mutawatir agreement, a majority consensus as to the necessity of the Mahdi, and that the Imam Mahdi, according to our brethren, he will be born. But for us, the world cannot remain without a Wali al-Amr. Imam Mahdi is Ulil Amr, is the 12th or the 14th of the Ulil Amr from Ahlul Bayt, the last one. The world cannot happen without the Imam. And what is the proof of that? The world cannot happen without the Imam. Imam Ali alayhi salam, when he is struck with the sword, he says, Fustu wa Rabbil Kaaba, and the angels cry out, Tahaddamat wallah arkan al-huda qutil al-Ali al-Murtada. When Aba Abdullah al-Husayn salamullahi alayhim, when his head is chopped off and his head is put on a lance, the earth starts shaking. There is a breeze or a wind that starts moving. The skies mourn. The angels are crying. All the athar of Qayamat are upon them. Lady Zainab says, Beta Sajad, Zara dekho to ki ye kya ho raha hai, ye kya ho raha hai. See what's going on. Imam Sajjad asks Lady Zainab to remove the door of the tent, or the opening of the tent, and he opens, he sees his father's head on a lance. He says, Assalamu alayka Aba Abdullah, and he puts his head down as to give condolence to the world, telling this world that there is still a Wali al-Amr alive right now. That is the proof of the wujud of Imam Mahdi. That is the proof of the nature of the Imam. Now, in maybe like 10 minutes, let's talk a little bit about Qiyamah. Inshallah ta'ala, if Allah gives me the opportunity, I would love to talk about a whole Ashra on the government style of Imam Mahdi and what it will mean for humanity. But right now is not the time for that. Of course, Imam Mahdi's government, I will say passingly, is the government of Imam Ali, is the government of Rasulullah, is the government of those prophets who had government like Dawood and Sulaiman, obviously. This is governance of the heart, not of the physical body. Now, Qiyamah. People ask, what is the proof of Qiyamah? Qiyamah is necessary for all of those who aspire for justice. Qiyamah is not, as some say, as Nietzsche once said, that religion is opium for the masses. People say, just lay low right now, and in the Akhirah, you will just have patience right now. In the Akhirah, you will get your reward. The Akhirah is supposed to be an impetus or a movement, or create harakat or movement or fervor in the hearts of those who believe to change their present. That is what the Akhirah is about. This world is not a word of reward or punishment. Many times we see Fir'aun, Shaddad, Namrud, Yazid, Muawiyah, Abu Sufyan, Hajjaj. All of these tyrannical rulers get authority, and they commit, Saddam, for example, they commit acts of atrocity on the masses, and more often than not, obviously, if they're unjust, that means they commit atrocities on the Ahlul Bayt. What that means, however, is that we need to understand this world is not a world of jaza and saza. Allah created the afterlife for this jaza and saza. That was the purpose of the existence and the creation and the execution of the afterlife. Yawm al-Qiyamah is that day where all the realities will come forward. All of the individuals will be gathered on Mahshar, and they will see that the Nurani figures of Ahlul Bayt are amongst the leaders of the Mahshar. All the individuals will be gathered with their Imams. May Allah make us under the flag of Imam al-Zaman, under the flag of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, under the flag of Rasulullah, Amir al-Mu'mineen. May God's peace and blessings be upon all of them and upon all of Prophet Muhammad and his progeny. They will be the ones. My teacher, Dr. Mahmoud Ayub, he has a very beautiful tradition he quotes. In his book, I believe this is Redemptive Suffering in Islam, his PhD thesis. He quotes that, he says, Fatimatu Zahra on the day of Mahshar will be sitting on a chair. Aba Abdullah al-Husayn alayhi salam will come by his mother with his severed head in his hand, and Fatimatu Zahra, seeing this, she will scream. And she will take vengeance for the blood of Aba Abdullah, and all the Imams will take vengeance for the blood of Aba Abdullah. All the Imams will take vengeance for the blood of Hussein. Not a single enemy and murderer of Imam Hussein will be left. The Akhirah is created for reward and punishment. Those who are the men of God will get paradise. Those who are in the middle ground, maybe sometime they will serve in the Inferno, as Dante would call it, but then they will be transferred to paradise. Then there are few who would be really evil. They get to spend the rest of the time in all of paradise, and in all of hell. The most beautiful understanding of the afterworld is that we are not to go for the afterworld. We are to go create paradise in this world. With the Radha, Fatimatu Zahra is the paradise of the mu'min in this world. If we have the mardi of Bibi Fatima, nothing can stop us. If we have the Rida of Amir al-Mu'mineen, you think something can stop us? No. Of Abu Abdullah, of Imam al-Hasan, and not only just the Prophet and the Imams, of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, of Sayyida Zainab, of Ali Akbar, of Fidda, who is not from the Ahlul Bayt. When we have their Rida, that is the ultimate blessing. That is the ultimate paradise. I don't need to look for Houris in the afterworld, as long as I can kiss the feet of Fatima Zahra. As long as I can kiss the feet of Sayyida Zainab salamullahi alayha. As long as I can kiss the feet of, and I mean that, of course, symbolically, because obviously we know the story of Umar ibn Sa'd la'anatullahi alayh, who, when he was born, Imam Ali said to Sa'd, there is a snake that has been born in your house who will kill my son Hussein. And Sa'd had enshrined or tried to enshrine the love of Imam Hussein in Umar ibn Sa'd's heart. Everywhere Imam Hussein would go, Umar ibn Sa'd would go and pick up the pieces of the sand that the Imam walked on and kiss them. But the treachery and the villainy and the lust and the love of this world that manifested itself to Umar ibn Sa'd in the governorship of Ra'i, which is a city or town, small ancient town next to Tehran, blinded Umar ibn Sa'd to the murder of Imam Hussein. Tonight, I want to talk to you about two little children. In the previous nights, I talked about, on one of the nights, the shahadat of Muslim ibn Aqil. Muslim ibn Aqil was killed in the most brutal and the vicious of manners, where he was thrown off of Darul Imara. He was thrown off of Darul Imara. When Abu Abdullah al-Husayn was traveling from Mecca to Kufa, at one time he stopped and he asked the Ahl al-Bayt and his companions who were with him to bring the daughter of Muslim ibn Aqil to him. They brought her to him. She was ordered by the Imam to sit down. Imam started kissing her and caressing her and patting her on the head. She says to him, Ya Mawla, O Master Hussein, why are you doing this? This is the way you treat orphans. What happened to my father? Abu Abdullah al-Husayn says, now I am your father. Your father, Muslim ibn Aqil, has been killed. Muslim ibn Aqil, alayhi salam, Muslim ibn Aqil, alayhi salam, when he was killed, before he came to Kufa, he went back to Medina to get his two sons. His two sons were left alone, stranded in the city of Kufa. They had absolutely nowhere to go. Imagine now being two little children. Muhammad and Ibrahim were little children. They were not old. They were not even baligh. They were young children. Now imagine being these two children. They just witnessed their father's shahada. They have nowhere to go in the city of Kufa. They have nowhere to go in the city of Kufa. Where do they go? They have nowhere to go. They hide and hide and hide. Some riwayat say that they were captured. But when the prison guard, who was Shia, found out they were the children of Muslim ibn Aqil, he said, I cannot let you go, but I will leave the door of the prison open so you can leave. So they leave. They cannot go anywhere. They cannot find any help or respite. But what happens is that one time they go to what they call in Urdu a pear, and they're about to drink some water from a small pond near them, or the riverbank near them, and then a servant comes to the riverbank to fill up her clay pot or clay bowl for water, clay vase for water, with water. She sees these two little children. She has respite for these two little children. She asks them, where are you? Who are you? Where are you from? The kids are hesitant. They say that it is not worthy for the people of Kufa for us to tell them who we are. She says, you can trust me. They say that the people of Kufa are not worthy of trust. They betrayed Imam Hussein. Now you are saying they are worthy of trust. She finally gains their trust. And they tell her they are the sons of Muslim ibn Aqil. They are from Medina. She goes, her Malika, she is a Shia of Ahl al-Bayt. She is a Shia of Ahl al-Bayt. She finds out that the children of Muslim ibn Aqil are there with her slave, with her Ganiz, her servant. She welcomes them to her house. She gives them food and water. The kids, they're different traditions, but Haris, who is the son of this mu'min, Haris is an enemy of Ahl al-Bayt. He spent the whole day looking for the children of Muslim ibn Aqil. He could not find them. But now, they remember their fathers, their different traditions as to what happened. But they say all traditions agree that the kids started remembering their father at the nighttime. they started crying. When Haris heard the cries of little children, he stormed into that hujra. He stormed into the quarters of the little children, and he says, "Who are you?" The mu'minah says, "Haris, leave them alone. They're my master's Muslims' children." Haris has no respite on those children. He drags the children, and he says, "No, I will kill you. I will kill you." He drags them to the riverbank. He asks them which one wants to be killed first. They ask, according to some traditions, a little bit of respite just to offer 2 rakats salat. They offer their prayer. Haris, they say to them, "If you want to kill us, if you want money," they say to him, "Take us to Medina. We'll take you to our mother. She'll give you loads of money for us in return for us." He says, "No, I will kill you." He says, "No, I will kill you." So he takes the head of one and he chops it in front of the other. He chucks the body into the river. He takes the head of the other and he chops the neck of the other and he chucks the body into the river. The bodies, they rise up, they join together in one last final embrace. Now there are 2 other children, 2 other sons of another mother who we talk about in Karbala. Those are the children of Zainab al-Kubra, Aun and Muhammad. We talk about their valor, their bravery, their courage. Now imagine, Lady Zainab, I will say this to you at the very least. Lady Zainab, salamullahi alayha, you were able to find out when your children died or when your children became shaheed. At the time your children became shaheed, the mother of the children of Muslim ibn Aqil, she does not know where her 2 sons are for the whole year. She wants to know. She finds out only after they return to Medina, only after the mother of Haris comes to Medina. She says to the Ahlul Bayt, "I am from Kufa." Muslim ibn Aqil's wife says, what happened to my children, Muhammad and Ibrahim?" She says, "Oh wife of Muslim, oh mother of Muhammad and Ibrahim, your kids were slaughtered, and the killer took their heads to take inam from Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, la'natullahi alayh." Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Say'alamu alladhina zalamu ayya munqalabi yanqalibun. Mata min Husain. Ya Husain, 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 Ya Husain.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. Oh Hussein, 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 oh Hussein. Each and every nation, oh Hussein, sends you salutation, oh Hussein. Each and every nation, oh Hussein, sends you salutation, oh Hussein. You will remain in our heart. I salute you, Hussein. I salute you, Hussein. I salute you, Hussein. Our holy prophet held you when you were born, and he cried, Allah. Remember in Karbala, and you alone with no one around. We will always love you, oh Hussein. No man is above you, oh Hussein. You will remain in our heart. I salute you, Hussein. I salute you, Hussein. I salute you, Hussein. Hussein is my beginning, my life, and he's my end. The status of Imam Hussein only God can understand. Savior of religion, oh Hussein, this is your station, oh Hussein. You will remain in our heart. I salute you, Hussein. I salute you, Hussein. I salute you, Hussein. How can we ever forget that day of your sacrifice? We are not able to control the tears from our eyes. In the world wherever, oh Hussein, we will cry forever, oh Hussein. You will remain in our heart. I salute you, Hussein. I salute you, Hussein. I salute you, Hussein. Whenever we are in trouble or need help, you are always there. It doesn't matter what time or which place, you are everywhere. Every step by our side, oh Hussein, as our leader and our guide, oh Hussein. You will remain in our heart. I salute you, Hussein. I salute you, Hussein. I salute you, Hussein. Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein.
حرنا شهید حرنا شهید حرنا شهید حرنا شهید شهید حرنا شهید حرنا شهید حرنا شهید حرنا شهید شهید حرنا شهید حرنا شهید حرنا شهید حرنا شهید شهید حرنا شهید حرنا شهید حرنا شهید حرنا شهید شهید. Is there anyone to guide me? Is there anyone to guide me? Anyone to stand in my place? Anyone to stand in my place? Any voice to speak out loud, to direct me to the right place, to direct me to the right place. From the other camp I hear Adhan, from the other camp I hear Adhan, from my camp cheering and song. Oh, is it so hard to choose? Oh, is it so hard to choose? حرنا شهید حرنا شهید حرنا شهید حرنا شهید شهید حرنا شهید حرنا شهید حرنا شهید حرنا شهید شهید. The adhan of Fajr Valley, the adhan of Fajr Valley Akbar cuts through the desert morning, cuts through the desert morning. Why does it make me restless? Why does it make me restless? I swear this is Rasul's voice. I swear this is Rasul's voice. By Allah, this is Rasul's face. By Allah, this is Rasul's face. Oh Allah, take me to his place. Oh, is it so hard to choose? Oh, is it so hard to choose? Horona, Shahid, Horona, Shahid, Horona, Shahid, Horona, Shahid, Shahid, Horona, Shahid, Horona, Shahid, Horona, Shahid, Horona, Shahid, Shahid. The intense heat of the desert, The intense heat of the desert presses down into my spirit, presses down into my spirit. It is nothing but coolness when I hear the cries of children ringing in the afternoon skies, the cries of a small baby, the cries of a small baby, like a spear pierces my heart. Oh, is it so hard to choose? Oh, is it so hard to choose? Corona, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Shahid. Hussein delays the battle. Hussein delays the battle. Why did he ask for one day? Why did he ask for one day? He expects a special visitor, galloping across the desert, galloping across the desert, like slaves blindfolded, hands tied, like slaves blindfolded, hands tied. So ashamed he was and he cries, so ashamed he was and he cries. He falls onto his chest. Oh, or was it so hard to choose? Oh, or was it so hard to choose? Corona, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Shahid. Hussein lifts up his wet face. Hussein lifts up his wet face. This commander of the enemy, this commander of the enemy, hugs him, welcomes him warmly. He who blocked off the water, he who stopped him from escaping. How can I lift my face up? How can I lift my face up? How can I look into your eyes? How can I look into your eyes? Oh, may Allah bless you. Oh, you are free in both worlds. Oh, you are free in both worlds. Corona, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Corona, Shahid, Shahid. Assalamu alayka ya Rasul Allah. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر الأهد مني لزيارتكم. Everyone, السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء، يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء، السلطان يا أبا الحسن علي بن موسى الرضا المرتضى. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا صاحب الأسر والزمان، الأمان 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 من فتنة الزمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن، السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات، رحم الله من يقرأ الفاتحة مع الصلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.